Good evening, good morning, depending upon where in the world you're dialing from. I am Snehanshu, your host and moderator for this session, and I welcome you all. The topic for today is retail in COVID times, the path forward. This is something that Kritika mentioned. And it's a good reason to really ask ourselves why we are talking about this right now. Well, for one, COVID has hit us belligerently like a force from the dark. It has impacted livelihood. It has impacted most of the industries. And I think there's a gradual acceptance that the road to recovery is going to be a long one, right? Businesses are seeking relevance, and this will accentuate certain kinds of trends. It will create newer ones also. And then you have this whole thing about retail. Rachel has been speaking about it very nicely. Retail was one of the earliest adopters of emerging technologies, and it would be interesting to see what happens post COVID. Will the investments continue? Will they be repurposed? Will they take a back seat? What happens really? Now, the good thing is that my guests this evening are veterans from the retail industry. They are leading their recovery efforts for the respective organizations and divisions, and we'll try and seek some answers from them around how they are really reacting to the current situation. What kind of which fundamentals of the retail sector will change and probably change forever. What kind of strategies and predictions do they have for the after COVID era that I was alluding to? It's my pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce Mr. Hari Vasudev, Country Head and Senior Vice President of Walmart Labs India, and Mr. Manish Mittal, Chief Omnichannel and Digital Shoppers Stop. Gentlemen, welcome to this forum. I would request both of you to unmute.
It's a pleasure being here.
Thank you, Snehanshu. Pleasure to be here. And good evening to everyone.
So Hari and Manish, plenty to talk about this evening. And then just to make most of your time on this session, let me get started and pose my first question. Hari, this one is to you. A very direct question, probably one that also needs to be asked. What will the post-COVID retail industry look like?
Yeah, so I think, clearly, as has been said many times over, COVID is in many ways a life-changing event, right? It's very hard to imagine things going back to being exactly the way they were. People are already talking about the new normal for everything, from the way we work to the way we live our lives. And I'm sure, it's also going to impact the way we shop. I think more and more what we're going to see is that people are going to be focusing a lot more on omni-channel shopping. The journey that was already started prior to COVID is just going to accelerate a lot more. And people are going to adjust to this new normal where they can get the things they want, where they want it, when they want it, whether it's delivered to their homes, whether they go to the nearest store to pick it up, or using any other mechanism possible. If you look at e-commerce itself, right, in the decade from 2009 to 2019, the penetration of e-commerce in the US market was about 5.5% in 2009 and ended at about 16% in 2000 at the end of 2019. And in the first 8 to 10 weeks of COVID, it went from 16% to 27%. And likely, it's going to end the whole year at maybe 20, 21%, but clearly a big jump, right? And that penetration and the behavior of consumers is only going to change. I don't think we're going to go back the old ways of living our lives, whether that's the way we work, the way we educate our kids, the way we travel, or indeed the way we shop.
And we'll try and explore the newer ways of working in more detail in the following sections. But let me just quickly cut across to Manish to really get some foundational thoughts on this. Manish, showed.
So much same as what Hari said, right? The world is changing very fast.
Looks like
Manish, might be a slight disruption in the internet, probably. We'll probably wait for Manish to sort of come back, but
sorry, I had.
Okay, lovely. Manish, can you hear me? All right.
I can, Snehanshu. Thank you. Sorry, I had some network problems.
Okay, please continue.
What I was saying essentially was that the world essentially has changed very immensely in a very short period of time. A drastic shift like this happens not so frequently. Thank heavens for that, at least. But it's gone in a direction that was heading for quite some time, any which ways. Like Hari said, a lot of fundamental things that customers were getting used to, the world was getting used
Looks like Manish is having some network problems.
Some network issues, probably.
Yeah.
Manish, we'll see if we can get you back in the next section. I'll just till such time that Manish comes back online with us. I'll go back to you, Hari. Right, among the sectors that have really taken the maximum amount of hit, one of the sectors globally is the supply chain. Right, questions are being asked if retailers would need to reevaluate the dependence on supply chain. A new strategy of supply will need to be probably put in place that adheres to the new norms. The question really is how to restore the supply chains that have been disrupted so badly in the COVID crisis.
Yeah, I think more and more what you're going to see is that companies are going to rely a lot on technology in order to really effectively utilize their supply chains, right? Because in a post-COVID world, you're going to see technology take a much larger role. And then, of course, they're going to look for a lot more flexibility. For example, in Walmart's case, there was a time where we ran our online and offline business very differently, right? I mean, we had a separate sort of set of fulfillment centers for our online business, and we had, distribution centers for our stores. And more, we are bringing those together and having essentially serving both our businesses through a single supply chain. And we're also bringing our stores into that network itself. During the COVID era, we already had a feature called Ship from Store, where when you order something online, we could ship it to you from the closest store, so that since if the item was already in the store, you would get it that much faster, and it would be a whole lot cheaper for us to ship it to your home from the store. Or you could just go to the store and pick it up. When COVID hit, we actually expanded that offering, and we now ship from store from more than 3,000 stores in the US, right? And that's a fundamental change essentially that we had to make very quickly in order to take the full power of our network and make it be available for our customers during the time of need. So you're going to see more and more such innovation that will happen, that will really sort of blend the supply chains across online and offline very, very smoothly in a very frictionless way. And you're going to see people starting to take advantage of technology like they've never before in order to ensure that the supply chains don't get as disrupted when another event of the kind that COVID strikes again.
Thank you so much. Manish, I'll just go back to you and just want to do a quick tech check if you're able to hear me all right. And maybe you can turn off your video if that helps you restore some of the bandwidth.
Thank you.
Lovely. So on the same question, what kind of newer developments you're seeing and in trying to sort of restore or lend more resilience to, the whole supply chain issue. If you could educate our audience a bit on the trends that you're seeing.
Sure. So one of the major things that we saw, for example, at Shoppers Stop, we had enabled Ship from Store also, like Hari said, for our customers. As much as 70 to 90% of our online sales was actually getting shipped from stores. And what we needed to do during COVID-19 times was actually change that reliance a little bit back to warehouses. Yeah. Because what was happening was, with the government regulations being what they are, there were times when we were not able to get this necessary stores open to ship the products to the customer when the customers placed the order. This constant changing of where a customer is, where the product is available, and how to create a marriage between the two to ensure that the customer gets the product delivered the fastest. I think the whole algorithm changes that we've done in the back end, the operational changes that we've introduced in the back end to ensure that we're able to tide over this period was one of the key learnings that we got out of the COVID-19 period from a supply chain perspective.
Sure. And I'll stay with you, Manish, and want to get deep into an area which we all feel is very important, which is the issue of customers, right? and plenty has changed from a customer point of view. The part that I really wanted to sort of understand is how are you seeing from a customer's point of view, uh, the change in their expectations, their needs, and their behaviors, the priorities in this new environment. That's the first part of what I wanted you to really comment upon. And the second one, you're a part of Shoppers Stop. I wanted to sort of get a little deeper into this whole, store aspect, and in trying to understand your views on what is the impact, real impact on store channel, its role, uh, and the corresponding operations. How do you keep your customers and associates safe while playing a new role for customers, right? So very, very customer focused discussion. I thought it would be apt to pose this question to you, Manish.
Sure. At its very heart,
Manish, we are losing you again for a bit.
am I audible now?
You are.
Okay. I was saying at the fundamental heart of retail, finally, retail is a very simple business. It is the art of marrying the customer's expectation to what you're delivering in terms of the product that you're bringing to the table. What has changed now is some things the customer has not changed their fundamental expectations in some areas. It's more of how they're expecting that has changed. So if I look at what has not changed at a fundamental level, customers are still looking for convenience. They're still looking for choice so that they get the right product that they want that is suitable for them. But what's got added to this, like you very correctly said, Snehanshu, customers are a lot more conscious now about safety and hygiene. These have become front and center of the thought process in the customer's choice of where they're going to do their shopping from. This has come out quite evidently in the research that we've done with our consumers. It's coming out continuously in the form of behavior we're seeing with consumers in our stores. Visits to stores have become a lot more purpose driven, which means that the location of one basic of Indian mentality as far as shopping was concerned, the location of window shopping itself has changed. Window shopping now no longer happens outside the store uh, or in the window of the store, it's happening more digitally. And that is what is allowing the visits to the store to become a lot more purpose driven.
Yeah.
We therefore have fewer footfalls, but much higher conversions because the customer is coming in very clear about what she wants and ensuring that that is what they go out with. And where are the customers going? Customers are going back to the brands that they trust. Experimentation is taking a little bit of a backseat today because they do not want to take any chances in the uncertain environment that the world has today. And very particularly for India, not a surprising effect, of course, vocal for local is getting quite loud.
True.
There's an emerging consciousness, if not yet a full preference in terms of buying behavior, but at least there is an ask for where the products originate from. And the ask for Indian origin products is starting to increase. At a macroeconomic level, and I need to just take this step back a little bit because it becomes relevant to all consumer behavior also. The fact is that the impact on demand will continue. And with unemployment at never before levels, one would expect essentials and smaller pack sizes ruling the roost like they've never before in retail. Some immediate behavior changes that we see in consumers, therefore, and how it impacts the store. We see a preference for shopping from home, not necessarily in a pure online manner, as we know a large part of the Indian audience has already moved to, but wanting to create a balance between the benefit of browsing through a physical store while at the same time being able to make the purchase without having to step into a store. And the trade-off between these has been the takeoff of the video chat-based solutions that a whole host of retailers have already introduced. An extension of the personal shopper service that Shoppers Stop introduced a long time before COVID itself, where customers are able to engage with personal shoppers in the store and now visualize products that they want to buy, find the right products for them, place the order through WhatsApp, and get the product delivered to them at the convenience of their home. Similarly, the avoidance of trying out products in stores, right? The customers who do walk into stores, there is an aversion to actually trying on products in many cases, although retailers like Shoppers Stop are taking all precautions of ensuring, for example, that every single product that is tried on is actually goes through a sanitization process before it is put back on the floor. But that does not take away from the customer's desire to avoid that particular action And therefore, there is an increasing need and an increasing growth of virtual reality, mixed reality products that retailers are starting to use both online and in store, which are allowing for a very different kind of a try-on experience, for example, than traditionally expected. So a whole host of these things that are starting to come in now in the form of appointments being taken by customers before walking in to ensure that there is no non-overcrowding at stores. Something that Rachel mentioned for Walmart, for Target as well. Similar kind of concepts in India also exist. Shoppers Stop is allowing such appointments for customers, uh, ensuring that there is the right amount of both ratio of customers and employees per square foot in the store to ensure social distancing is maintained.
Yeah.
All of these are trends that we're seeing now coming in because of the new normal.
Lovely. That was very comprehensive, Manish. And I'd probably take a part of the same question to Hari. Hari, the question again to you is that, are you seeing the customers' expectations changing? Has the customer sort of evolved through the crisis?
Absolutely. I think, if you look at customers globally, right, whether in the US and India or anywhere else, they were always looking for convenience and trust, right? They wanted to essentially have the convenience in their shopping. They always went with brands and retailers that they trusted. Right? And now, of course, safety has been added on top of that as a very, very critical need. And so, some of the things that Manish talked about are essentially trends that we are seeing as well. So, for example, even when customers order things online, their desire for safety extends beyond just having it be delivered ordered online. I mean, their homes. They actually want something called contactless delivery. So we have actually gone ahead and changed the way our applications work, where customers, when they order something, can choose to have contactless delivery as an option, which then triggers, an instruction to the driver to just leave the item on the front door of the customer's home, take a picture, and then upload it to our backend systems, right? And then once we get the picture, that's when we trigger a message to the customer saying your order is outside your home. You can just open the door and pick it up. So the customer never has to get in touch with the driver, nor the driver has to be in contact with the customer. Ensure safety for both our customers and our associates. Another example, right, for essentials. See, just because COVID is happening and social distancing is being followed, or customers are not able to go out, doesn't mean that they don't want their essentials, right? They want their medicines, they want their essential supplies daily. And oftentimes what they can do now is to order it and then, just either call in an order or order online and then just drive to the store but never get out of their car. They can actually have the associate walk out, load up their trunks at the curbside or drop off the order, through the window itself and then just leave. So these are all just some examples of how we have rolled out changes that we think are going to be permanent, right? In the sense that customers, once used to the convenience, are not going to go back to the old way. Yeah, sure, there may be items like, big ticket items that they may want to come and touch and feel, but even there, more and more, we are going to start to see acceleration of technology trends like AR and VR. For example, we already had a concept where we used to allow customers to we were trying out services where customers could take pictures of their homes, and then that content could then be used to place furniture within their home setting while they were in the store, right? So you're going to see trends like that starting to accelerate, when more and more this whole notion of how you shop and how you maintain social distancing and how you allow shopping to happen without getting as much physical contact is something that I think is going to be very much a trend that's going to stay, simply because it's so convenient, right? I mean, it's so convenient to be able to do this. Why would you go back to the old way of doing it, which was a lot less convenient?
True, true. Thanks. I think that was a very meaningful sort of segue that we created in this discussion on customers. But I'll just go back to Manish. Manish, it is now largely being accepted that some difficult choices would need to be made. And then these changes could include changes to business model also. And so the question is, in your opinion, what are some of those internal and external changes that retailers need to effect to remain relevant and in the game? So we have already spoken about customers, but outside of customers, what else do you think would really change, would need to change?
Fundamentally, and I think what Rachel spoke in her presentation also had this underlying thread. Nimbleness and agility fundamentally are the key constituents that I think any business, retail or otherwise, will need to be able to drive its own success in the new future. More than ever before, retailers are already starting to look at their own resources with a fresh pair of eyes. These could be internal resources, these could be external resources. There is no holy cow anymore. I mean, if you look at what retailers are challenging themselves on, whether it's people, productivity, capital, investments, what kind of technologies to choose, what kind of technologies to move away from, the willingness to take up non-technical paths to deliver faster results. All of these are things that today are becoming real, as against in the past when somebody said I want perfection. Today it's not about perfection, it's about the speed at which you actually are able to deliver and move forward. It is also a time when retailers will have to, if they have not already, of course, start leveraging their data assets much better. Assortment planning will now be extremely critical. It always was, but today it takes up a new meaning because a lot of the data that retailers had in the past may not be relevant anymore. A lot of the data learning models or machine learning models that were created in the past will need to be tweaked for what is happening now in the market. And based on all of this, the assortment planning that actually gets done now going forward will be much tighter, will need to bring much greater controls on inventory, of course, with a much larger understanding of the consumer requirement for each local catchment. Because that is the only way a retailer is going to be able to be financially prudent or financially viable to carry the business forward. When I'm talking about that, or when I'm talking about the use of data, I can't move away from the customer either. So for a minute, looking at the customer from a retailer's inside out lens, customer relationship management assumes that much more significance.
Yeah.
We spoke in the last segment about the concept of personal shoppers as an example, but even personal shoppers is something that can work best with
Losing you, Manish. Just giving you a couple
Sorry
of
about
seconds.
that. Am I audible now?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So as I was saying, even a customer relationship engagement, one personal shopper talking to a customer, whether in the store or outside, today has to be much more armed, much more empowered with a lot more data about the customer for that engagement to be that much more meaningful. The customers coming in today, as we said earlier, with an intent to buy, the conversion rate is likely to be high. But what the end customer ends up buying, are we able to amplify the basket size of the customer? Are we able to ensure that the customer gets the best of what they were looking for? Depends purely upon the kind of data that we arm our associates with and how much of customer information we are able to place at the fingertips of our associates. Similarly, if I look at, pre-COVID, we used to have terms of like digital influence, digital infusion. Digital influence was where retailers were measuring how much of the customers walking into the store were influenced by their online presence to make the decision to come into the store. Digital infusion was the reverse. How much of digital technologies were we able to actually bring into our retail stores in order to better serve our customers while
Manish, I think we lost audio just for a few seconds. If we can just rewind for the benefit of our audience.
Okay. So I was talking about digital influence and digital infusion.
Yeah.
Digital infusion being when a customer is, when a retailer helps a customer to get a better experience in the store using digital technologies. What's happening now is that thought process is shifting from concepts to actually becoming real. Retailers are now wanting to measure this much more and to implement this much more, because that's the way they will then be able to, again, make the best use, optimize they are putting to bear. Store staff, often earlier resistant to online, if you recollect the pre-COVID world, one often saw store staff often treating their own online presence to some extent as a competition. But with COVID coming in, with the kind of cultures that COVID has now brought in, that's actually shaping up to create a very different kind of a model within organizations, with online and offline merging much more seamlessly within the organization. Store staff are now empowered using online. They're given a lot more digital training. We've used at Shoppers Stop, for example, the last 3-4 months to create a much more robust digitally enabled staff. We've done a whole host of process of digitization, which have helped us reduce and eliminate registers in the stores, and therefore make us more efficient as an organization, as a retailer. And endless aisle, a concept that we had pioneered even earlier. We had it for a year and a half before COVID, is now gaining that much more traction, because when the customer's in the store staff is actually able to make the end rather than having to wait for a customer to only get what is available in that particular store.
Got it. Yeah. So I'll quickly cut across to Hari. Hari, in your opinion, what are some of the changes that you believe retailers would need to make to stay relevant in the business?
So I think, fundamentally, it's going to be an acceleration of what is already happening, right? I don't think customers wake up in the morning thinking I'm going to do online or offline shopping. Right? For them, shopping is shopping. It essentially is becoming truly omni-channel. It's a blended thing. The journey may begin online or offline and may end up in either offline or online again, right? And I think clearly customers are going to look for a much more integrated experience. And in order to be able to deliver that integrated experience, not only do you have to be nimble and fast, but ultimately you have to really technologically empower and enable your business, right? Whether that's your associates in the stores, whether that's your people in the distribution centers in the supply chain, or whether that's your merchandisers. Ultimately, right, data is going to be critical, absolutely. But harnessing that power of the data, and again, giving customers the experience, the best experience that we can possibly do, regardless of whether they're doing it online or offline. So, for example, if they're shopping online, through search and personalization, you might be able to give them a great experience. If they're ordering groceries online and the order is actually being picked by your store staff, by your staff in the store, getting them ready for basically loading the consumer's trunks when they drive up to this, the associates in the store have to know if a particular item that was ordered by the customer is not available, what do they substitute that with? If they were to actually go and call the customer, that's essentially going to be too expensive. The customer may not be available. So they have to learn, right? And to learn, they have to be able to use the data that looks at not just past shopping behavior of that particular customer, but customers in a similar cohort, customers who bought similar items. So they have to really essentially start to leverage technology and to be able to make these decisions in real time without actually having to talk to the customers each time, right? So more and more you're going to start to see technology at scale being deployed very, very quickly, right? That's what companies have been doing in order to scale up very, very fast. And I think companies that are able to do that really effectively and efficiently, and to be able to operate with nimbleness and speed at the scale at which, like for example, Walmart is operating with 11,000 stores worldwide, yet in a matter of a week or less, we're able to roll out new innovation like ship from stores or curbside pickup and contactless delivery and so on. So this whole idea that, oh, you're too big and therefore you cannot be nimble is dead, right? I mean, the idea that no matter how big you are, even at Walmart scale, if we can be nimble enough to roll out features in a couple of days on the back of very strong technology foundations and a very deep understanding of customers, that's going to be what that will differentiate the retailers of the future.
At this time, I just want to reach out to the audience and suggest that if you have any questions for our panelists, feel free to type that in and we'll try and get as many of those answered as possible. But staying with you, Hari, and this is really the final section of what I wanted to discuss. The whole recovery plan that we are talking about, how do they execute the recovery plan? And then to what extent can retailers really look at technology to offer help?
So I think the technology innovation, right, in retail has been happening for a long time. As I was talking about it earlier, right, if you look at how we have really delivered the omni-channel promise, it is by bringing in technology from the offline and online side together. One simple example, right, Manish talked about assortment planning. So there is a time when we used to do assortment planning in the stores, right? And today, of course, signals coming into assortment planning for the stores is no longer just from store traffic. is also looking at online traffic. It's looking at competitive traffic for that particular store in that zip code. So you cannot do something assortment planning at a national level or even a regional level. It has to now be done at a store item level, right? Which means you're doing assortment planning on an individual store by store basis, on an individual item by item basis, and you're looking at signals coming from all the different sources, online, offline, competitive, on a by demographic, by zip code, and so on, right? Which means that you have to really crunch through massive amounts of data. You have to build very deep, extremely effective machine learned algorithms so that you can accurately forecast demand in the store. And then you have to be able to deal with extraordinary events like what we're going through right now, right? And so, how do you bring sort of all of this to bear together very quickly and to be able to deliver that with speed at scale? Technology has to be that way. That's the only way that you're going to be able to scale. So I think you're going to see a significant investment happening in technology continuously, and more, you're going to see that retailers and others will start to use technology in all the different parts of their business. As a simple example, right? Our store associates are all equipped with mobile devices now. And one of the things that we're doing is in the past, you could afford to be building applications for the associates that are sort of jumbled together. There's maybe 20 or 30 applications installed on a device.
Yeah.
Well, when you have 1 million associates across the world, right, operating stores, 11,000 stores across the world, it's essentially as big as many companies have consumers, right? So for us, more and more the focus is now building consumer grade applications for our associates. So associates, when they are in a store, depending upon their own role and what they are privileged to do or not do, depending upon where in the store they are, we can actually put up the right task in front of them. So the way you actually maneuver your associates through their workday and through the store is completely done through technology now, right? And it's a mix of what's available in the store, what customers are looking for, what that associate is capable of doing, how much training they've had. And so you're constantly sort of learning from the systems, and you're essentially using this learning to make the systems better and better every day for our associates so that they can then serve the customers better. And that's just one example of how we bring technology to bear outside of something that's completely outside of the customer realm or supply chain, right? It has nothing to do with any of that. It is to do with how do you get a store associate to be as productive as they can be in the future and serve the customers better.
You should can argue this someone is today's conversation. You see a gradual graduation.
Yeah, so I think I'm not sure if it's just me, but there seems to be some disturbance in your line. We couldn't hear you really well.
Yes, Snehanshu, not able to hear you.
Okay. Am I audible?
No, there's a lot of static.
Static.
I think Snehanshu's.
Is it any better?
No.
No.
Let me meanwhile take a shot also at adding a couple of points maybe to what Hari said on how retailers are going to take this forward and what will they need to do to stay relevant. Hari, I think you covered a lot of ground on that, and I mean it'll be very difficult to add much more to it. But I think one fundamental thing for retailers that don't have the kind of pedigree, for example, that a Walmart Labs would, one of the things that I see a lot of my colleagues across the retail industry starting to relook at is their entire technology landscape, particularly from a perspective of simplifying it. One of the focuses I've seen them bring in as part of the simplification is the ability to make a lot more plug and play kind of concepts available and doable so that they can move faster. In the past, some of the things that we would have wanted to do as retailers would have taken a lot longer simply because integration between two partners, for example, would have a whole host of understanding of each other's platforms, technology teams talking to each other for ages before that can get done, and so on and so forth. But with microservices, with web services, with APIs, with RESTful, all of this coming in, headless commerce coming in, a lot more willingness from the retailers as well.
I think we lost Anish too now.
to modularize their systems. Okay, technology is not a friend today. Am I audible now?
Yeah, you are.
Fantastic. Okay. So I was saying, therefore, a lot more.
Sorry, please finish your point. Yeah.
I was just saying, therefore, a lot more modularization of systems are happening, which is also allowing us, therefore, to be a lot more open to startups who can then come in, engender themselves along with us, get off the ground much faster, because we don't no longer have to rely on a very long lead time for getting small projects off the ground, and therefore a lot more ability for a good collaboration between established retailers and startups to work together and bring the best of both worlds faster to the consumer.
No, I agree. And I think, one thing I would like to add to that, right? It goes beyond technology. I mean, Walmart has always been an extremely strong proponent of the ecosystem play. So, for example, if you look at it, we have partnered very actively with the suppliers, with small companies and large companies. And really, as you said, Manish, technology is just a way of doing it, but it starts with the mindset, right? So, as an example, we had a platform called Retail Link, which allowed us to share aggregate data with our suppliers, which then allowed them to do much better planning of assortment. They know what categories sold within the category, what items sold, and therefore allowed them to plan their business better. And we made the technology available to them. And by doing that, we reduce their cost of operations. But then rather than keep that profit to ourselves, we essentially pass that back to the customers through a lower price on their items, right? So this is essentially the two concepts that Walmart has pioneered, called EDLC, or everyday low cost, and EDLP, or everyday low price. So by leveraging technology and by creating an ecosystem around ourselves, and by being very open in allowing others to plug and play as part of that ecosystem, you're driving costs down for everybody, and therefore you're then able to pass those price benefits on to our customers, right? And now we're starting to do that by integrating other companies into our ecosystem, by essentially making sure that we are actively working with startups in the ecosystem to be able to give them a canvas, if you will, that allows them to try their solutions in our stores, and then we are helping them develop the solutions and scale them, so that eventually they can take the solution across our entire network. So I think the ecosystem play on the top of technology is an extremely important one, Manish. That's something that
absolutely
it's a path to success for the future, for sure.
So, gentlemen, thanks a lot. First things first, I just want to do a tech check. Am I audible?
Yes, you are. It's much better now.
Okay, so thank you for co-hosting this session. I will have to share end credits with you. Okay, well, Hari, Manish, thanks a lot. But I think there are a couple of questions coming from the audience. I just want to pick up a few of them, if not all of them. The first question is being posted by Nikhil Sharma. So, Nikhil, a shout out to you. The question is, will brick and mortar model even survive, or does it die down during this pandemic? A short, crisp answer, and we'll start off with you, Hari.
Absolutely, yes. Right. If you look at what has happened since COVID, our online business grew about 75%. Right. In the last quarter, when we reported results, year over year, our online business grew 75%. Comp store sales, or comparable store sales, grew 10%. Now, if you know retail, you know that that's a big number, especially at Walmart scale. Typically, comp store sales grow at about 1 or 2 or 3%. And for comp store sales to have grown 10%, just indicates that, again, like I said, this whole notion of that is going to be either online or brick and mortar, I think, is a very antiquated notion. It's all going to be omni-channel now. And the blend, or this distinction between what's retail and what's online, or what's offline retail versus what's online retail, is going to it's going to disappear very quickly. Right? We're already starting to see that happen.
Yeah.
The only reason Walmart has been as successful as it has been during the COVID, when a lot of other retailers are struggling, is precisely because of the technology investments,
True.
the process changes that we have made to be able to really take advantage of the shift to omnichannel. So brick and mortar is here to stay. I don't think it's going anywhere. But more and more, it's going to be this very unique blend of online and offline that is really tailored around convenience, safety, trust, value for the customer. And the companies that are able to deliver on that are the ones that are going to be successful.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Manish, I will let you have the final say in this session with a question from the audience. Injara asked a question, which is, retail industry is one of the biggest job providers, and this pandemic is further encouraging automation. Do you expect retail companies to see a shift in their customer strategy? These are the two distinct questions, but at least the first one around job creation seems to be something that we haven't discussed so far. So if you can please answer this one.
Sorry, I missed the question. Can you repeat that for me, please?
So the question is, retail industry is one of the biggest job providers, and this pandemic is further encouraging automation. The whole question is, if there is automation, are we not going to see it create as many jobs in future?
Okay. So I think, as with any revolution, right, the nature of jobs change.
Manish, the connection is a little choppy at your end, it seems.
Yes, it does seem that way. Are you able to hear me now?
Yes. The tech check is always fine.
Good. So we'll try and keep it like that. As I was saying, all revolutions typically have always resulted in nature of jobs changing. There has always at every revolution, whether it was the industrial revolution or any other one that you bring up, there were fears that jobs will get overtaken. Yes, a certain nature of jobs do get changed, but at the same time, new jobs get created. Similarly, with the current ongoing transformation, and I suspect when we look back at it with hindsight, we are going to call this period also as a revolution. We are seeing a change in the nature of jobs that are getting taken, that are coming up. If you look at the temporary jobs that the pure play marketplaces are creating today, whether it is from a delivery perspective, whether it is from a servicing perspective, there are a huge number of these jobs that are getting created. Look at the number of jobs technology is creating today, and technology is becoming like a second arm of retail today. Also, not to forget, as the role of retail changes, as the role of the retail store changes, the nature of the staff within the store will also undergo a change. And that change will also, again, still require people to engage with customers. It's just a different kind of people and a different kind of skill set required to engage with that customer.
Yeah. Lovely. So I know for a fact that there are at least 5 or 6 more questions, but I think we are out of time, and that's all the time that we had for this session. To the audience who couldn't get their questions answered, my request is please do mail it across to the session organizers, and we'll try and get them answered from our panelists. So that is all the time that we had for this session. I'd like to thank my guests, Hari and Manish, for taking time out and giving their inputs on a Monday. I'm hoping that there were a few takeaways that we could create for the audience, but do stay tuned for this Retail Tech Day. Lots of interesting sessions lined up for you. We'll follow this up with a showcase event for retail startups, but for now, we'll sign off. So thank you for tuning in. Stay safe, take care, and bye-bye. Over to you, Kritika.